Whether you like it or not. The words hit me like a fist to the chest, each syllable a jagged edge tearing through the quiet of our dimly lit kitchen. Whether you like it or not, I'm going on a trip with my ex. Sarah's voice trembled with defiance, her hazel eyes blazing as she stood by the counter, clutching a glass of red wine so tightly I thought it might shatter. The air smelled faintly of burnt toast and the lavender candle she'd lit to set the mood before dropping this bomb. My mouth went dry, and the linoleum floor seemed to tilt beneath my feet. A trip with her ex. The man she swore was ancient history, a ghost she'd buried years ago. My pulse thundered in my ears, drowning out the hum of the refrigerator. I wanted to scream, to demand answers, but all I could manage was a choked, "What?" Sarah's jaw tightened, her lips pressing into a thin line as she set the glass down with a deliberate clink. "It's not what you think, Ben," she said, her voice softer now, but laced with something I couldn't name, guilt, maybe, or fear. "It's just a weekend. A group thing. His sister's getting married, and I was invited ages ago, before we even met." She turned away, fussing with a dish towel, her movements jerky, like she was trying to outrun the tension crackling between us. The kitchen clock ticked, each second a hammer against my skull. I stared at the back of her head, her dark hair spilling over her shoulders, and felt a sickening churn in my gut. Why hadn't she mentioned this before? Why now, 3 years into our relationship, with a lease signed and a life half built together? I sank into a chair, the wood creaking under my weight. "You're telling me this now?" My voice was low, unsteady, like I was trying to keep a lid on something feral clawing its way out. "You didn't think to mention you're jetting off with Jake? The guy you cried over for months." Her ex's name tasted like bile on my tongue. Jake, the charming photographer with a laugh that filled rooms, the one she described as intense and impossible to forget. I'd seen his pictures on her old Instagram, his arms slung around her waist, her smile brighter than it ever was with me. I'd told myself it didn't matter. People move on. But now, the past felt like it was sitting at our table, smirking. Sarah spun around, her eyes flashing with frustration. "It's not like that, Ben. God, why do you always assume the worst?" She crossed her arms, the sleeve of her oversized sweater slipping to reveal a sliver of wrist, delicate and familiar. I wanted to reach for her, to pull her close and erase this moment, but my hand stayed glued to my thighs. "It's a wedding," she continued, her voice rising. "There'll be dozens of people there. I'm not sneaking off for some secret rendezvous." She paused, her gaze flickering to the floor, and that brief hesitation was a knife twisting in my chest. Doubt crept in, cold and insidious, whispering questions I didn't want to face. Was she telling the truth? Or was this trip a crack in the foundation I'd thought was solid? The next few days were a blur of unease, like walking through fog so thick you can't see the ground. Sarah went about her routine, making coffee, humming softly while folding laundry, but every move felt like a performance. I caught her staring at her phone too long, her fingers hovering over the screen before she locked it and shoved it into her pocket. Once, I heard her laugh during a late-night call, her voice muffled behind the bedroom door. When I asked who it was, she said, "Just a friend," with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. I wanted to believe her. I told myself I was paranoid, that love meant trust, that I was reading too much into the way she avoided my gaze. But the doubt grew, a weed choking out reason, and every small gesture, a quick glance away, a too casual shrug, became a clue in a puzzle I wasn't sure I wanted to solve. Friday came, the day she was set to leave. The apartment smelled of her perfume, a sharp floral scent that clung to the air as she packed. Her suitcase sat open on the bed, neatly folded clothes stacked beside a pair of heels I'd never seen her wear. New shoes. I asked, leaning against the doorframe, my voice tighter than I intended. She glanced up, startled, then smiled, a quick, brittle thing. "Yeah, got them on sale. Thought they'd be nice for the wedding." Her fingers lingered on the zipper, and for a moment I swore I saw her hands tremble. I wanted to ask more, to demand why she needed new shoes for a trip with her ex, but the words stuck in my throat. Instead, I watched her pack, each item a brick in the wall growing between us. She left that evening, her goodbye kiss fleeting, her lips barely brushing mine. "I'll call you when I land," she promised, her voice bright but hollow. I stood at the window, watching her taxi disappear into the dusk, the city lights smearing into streaks of gold and red. The apartment felt too big, too quiet, the silence pressing against my skin. I poured a whiskey, the burn of it grounding me as I sat on the couch, staring at her favorite mug on the coffee table. It was chipped, a relic from her college days, and she refused to throw it out. Sentimental value, she'd said once, her eyes soft. Now, that mug felt like a lie, a prop in a story I no longer understood. The weekend crawled by, each hour heavy with questions. She texted sporadically, short updates about the weather, the venue, the food, having fun. I texted back, hating how needy it sounded. Her reply came hours later. Yeah, it's nice. Miss you. I stared at those words, searching for truth in their pixels, but they felt like a script, rehearsed and empty. Saturday night, I couldn't sleep. I paced the apartment, the floorboards creaking under my weight, and found myself scrolling through her social media. No new posts, but her story showed glimpses of the wedding, laughing faces, clinking glasses, a dance floor bath in fairy lights. And then, a fleeting clip, Sarah, twirling in those new heels, her dress catching the light. Behind her, a figure I recognized instantly, Jake, his grin wide, his hand grazing her arm as he leaned in to say something. The video cut off, but the image burned into my mind, a snapshot of betrayal I couldn't unsee. I called her, my heart pounding, but it went to voicemail. I tried again, then texted, "So your story? Look cozy with Jake." No response. The silence was deafening, a void swallowing every rational thought. I imagined them together, laughing, reminiscing, their old chemistry reigniting under the glow of string lights. I hated myself for it, for letting my mind spiral, but the pieces were falling into place. Her secrecy, her defensiveness, the way she'd pulled away these past weeks. I poured another whiskey, the glass shaking in my hand, and waited for her to call back. She didn't. Sunday morning, my phone buzzed. A text from Sarah. "I'm sorry about the story. It's not what it looks like. I'll explain when I'm home." I read it over and over, each word a spark in the tinderbox of my emotions. Anger flared, then grief, then a desperate need to believe her. I wanted to trust her, to cling to the love we'd built, but the doubt was a tide pulling me under. When she walked through the door that evening, her suitcase thudding against the floor, I was waiting. Her face was pale, her eyes red-rimmed, like she'd been crying. "Ben," she started, her voice breaking, "I need to tell you something." My heart stopped, the room shrinking to the space between us. She sat on the couch, her hands twisting in her lap, and the truth spilled out in halting, tear-soaked words. Jake had kissed her at the wedding, a drunken moment under the stars. She'd pushed him away, she swore, but not before someone snapped a photo, a damning frame now circulating among their old friends. "I didn't want it," she said, her voice raw. "I love you, Ben. I swear I do." But her eyes wouldn't meet mine, and the air was thick with what she wasn't saying. Had she hesitated? Had she wanted it, even for a second? The questions choked me, and I realized the betrayal wasn't just a kiss. It was a secrecy, the half-truths, the way she let me drown in doubt. I stood, my legs unsteady, and walked to the window. The city hummed below, indifferent to the wreckage in our apartment. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. She didn't answer, and in her silence, I found the truth. She'd wanted to keep the possibility alive, to hold on to a piece of her past even as she built a future with me. The realization was a blade, sharp and final, severing the trust I'd thought was unbreakable. I turned to her, my heart a ruin, and said, "I can't do this." Her sob echoed in the quiet, but I was already walking away, the door closing behind me with a soft, irreversible click.